got from the DOJ. CBS News reporting subpoenas issued to Waltz, Ellison, and Frey in probe alleging immigration obstruction. The DOJ on Tuesday served subpoenas to the offices of multiple Democratic officials in Minnesota, including Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, in connection with a probe into an alleged conspiracy to impede federal immigration officers. 3 sources familiar with the matter told CBS News. The subpoenas represent a significant escalation between the DOJ and Minnesota officials who have clashed over the Trump administration's intense crackdown against immigrants living in the state illegally. They were served on the same day that Attorney General Pam Bondi arrived for a visit in Minnesota, multiple sources told CBS. Now, I just want to say one thing really quick, because you guys know that I've been glazing CBS News since Barry Weiss took over. I just want to make sure I point out, they literally said immigrants living in the states illegally. They didn't put migrants. They didn't put innocent children. They literally told the truth. I respect that because no one else in the corporate press has been doing that. And so, good. I say subpoenas were sent in connection with a DOJ investigation into state and local officials to see if they may have conspired to impede federal officers from discharging their duties. The Justice Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment. A copy of a subpoena seen by CBS does not specify which criminal violations the department is probing. However, multiple sources previously told CBS the primary statute being used as the basis for the probe is 18 U.S.C. 372. The same one that was used against some of the rioters who stormed the Capitol on January 6. Is that poetic justice? We shall see if anyone actually gets arrested.
Does this count as something happening? Nothing ever happens, guy.
You know, me?
No, I'm saying for the nothing. For the
I'm not. Things won't stop happening. See, the issue is nothing is ever enough for the nothing ever happens people. So they say, oh, so what? It's a subpoena. Tell me when they get arrested. It's like, well, Trump got arrested a year and a half ago. That was a thing that was happening. This is the first process. I think for most people, because they watch movies and you read history books. If you're reading if you read an encyclopedia entry on the American Revolution, it'll say like a quick paragraph like, due to an increase in taxes and violation of rights by the government, meetings were held by the founding fathers, which ultimately culminated. And then a year later, they're like, we're signing a Declaration of Independence. And you go, yeah, you sent the letter, big deal. And then 3 months later, you get a response from the Crown. Regulars are showing up, and they're like, they come all the time. They regularly send regulars. At a certain point, someone's going to be like, the regulars are coming as they run through the night to warn everybody.
Yeah.
And that's when everyone kind of wakes up to it. So in the case of the Civil War, it didn't happen for like a year and a half or 2 years. People don't know this. They think the Civil War was like the South and the North met at Fort Sumter, and then the South was like, I hereby declare civil war. And then the North was like, how dare you? When actually, after the fight, there was still no Civil War. Actually, after the first Battle of Bull Run, there was still no Civil War, even though people were dead. It wasn't until I think it was a year and a half to 2 years later, they were like, hey guys, this is a Civil War. And then 2 years later, it was over.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not particularly black-pilled on all this stuff. I think that the government is going to go through the, standard motions to do an investigation and stuff. Obviously, I would love to see all 3 of these guys, in jail for what they've done. I think they've impeded the operations of ICE. They've encouraged people to commit acts of terrorism. So for me, it's like, all right, the ball's rolling,
Yeah. I mean, the DOJ's got to get this right, obviously, when you're issuing this many subpoenas, a lot of charges to go around. But a lot of people, again, on Twitter, but a lot of people that are legal experts have outlined the variety. I mean, they had their pick of statutes they could bring charges forth under. So it's interesting that they've gone with 372, seeing as it was used in J6. Again, people are pretty sour, even within MAGA, even the most loyal Trump supporters have soured on the DOJ's performance. This could be the instance where they potentially win back, I think, a lot of people, including me, who have really felt like they've dropped the ball on in many ways.
It's 372 is conspiracy to impede or injure an officer.
I mean, on its face, it seems pretty obvious that they did. Conspiracy to impede, like the fact that they're obviously talking to each other, they're talking to the police officers, they're talking to the department, and they're like, look, this is the stuff that you want to do. We want to pull these guys back, blah, blah, blah. Anytime that they're not actually directing law enforcement to help ICE do its job, they're actually impeding.
I just want to give a quick shout out, if you go to this Cornell Law School, to AJ Palagar, because I guess these are advertisements for lawyers in Florida. You can pull it back up if you want. Can you pull it back up? I just thought it was funny that we're pulling up the law to talk about news, and these guys have their ads running on it. And there's lawyers, so free promo, guys.
There you go.
Shout out,
There you go.
congratulations.
Great work.
Anyway, the world's ending, and people are going to need a lot of lawyers, at least for the next several years. So what say you, Amy?
I mean, this is something that, I mean, you've kind of been saying for a long time. Civil war's coming, and like you mentioned, the nothing ever happens people always kind of scoff at that. But I think we're definitely seeing a culmination of, man, I mean, even before all of this really kind of stepped up a notch when it came to directly impeding these officers. You want to talk about these judges kind of letting immigrants like slip in through the back door of the courthouse so they don't, get arrested by ICE. I mean, this was already happening. We're just seeing it at a scale that is really scary. And now we're talking about, judges getting assassination attempts put on them. They're talking about we need to instigate laws to ensure that judges' addresses are removed, Why wasn't this already a thing? That's my question. Like after the Kavanaugh assassination attempt, why wasn't this already a thing to remove the judges?
I don't. When I see the statements from like Mayor Frey and Tim Walz, I don't believe these people are stupid. They may be, but for different reasons. But I think they're fully cognizant of the truth. They know what ICE is doing. They know why ICE is doing it. But they get their power, their luxury, their access from the left. And so they're not going to give that up. If they were to come out and say, I'm going to be honest with you guys, the American people voted for these actions. And that means the people who live in Minnesota who are here illegally are going to have to go home. And that's what democracy is. If they said that, they'd be out of office and they'd be in the poorhouse in 2 seconds. These are people who would rather say, burn the country down before taking me out of power. And we all know what happens to people like that. We've seen it in the Arab Spring. These guys in these countries could have walked away, but they didn't want to. Now, by all means, you can argue that, the ousting or killing of a lot of these politicians was wrong, or whatever your opinion is. My point is, at a certain point, when there are people who are like, I should be in charge and I refuse to give up, they get removed, they get punished in some way. I think it's fair to say there is a conflict happening in this country. And whoever loses is going to face the consequences. Democrats are calling for putting Republicans in prison. Republicans at the ground level but Republican politicians are just shoving their thumbs up their butt and doing nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if Trump's going to do something, then he should fully do it. Do you know what I mean? Because otherwise he's just instigating and pissing them off to the point where when they do come back in power, it's going to be with an absolute vengeance. And especially with the gerrymandering that we were kind of talking about before the show, setting up like permanent electoral majority in these different states. It's like, if we're going to do something, we need to actually fully do it.
What would that look like?
I mean, actually making sure that these indictments go through when it comes to. I'm surprised that it didn't even happen. Subpoenas, sorry. Yeah. I'm surprised that it didn't even happen though when it came to the healthcare conspiracy out of Minnesota. Like, why? How come there weren't any subpoenas issued over that when it came to Walz? Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. Is like I think there's a lot of people within the Trump administration that are aware of this. I think Trump is aware of this, but a lot of people within the DOJ, especially, it doesn't seem that they understand that at this rate, with this level of escalation, with this level of radicalism that is like persistent on the left, this is the off ramp. Like we are heading down the path of civil war. This is the off ramp, is decisive, strong executive power. There's no ands, if, or buts, because the entire left-wing media and political activist soy-waffen apparatus has been built on Trump is an evil fascist, ISIS, Gestapo. There's no common ground with these people. There's no like wrestling them back. There's no debate to be had. There's no market, or there's no idea to sell in the marketplace of ideas to like win these people back over. It's like, no, the only thing they're going to respond to at this point is force. And so, again, like you said, to your point, I mean, the subpoenas are great, but we need to nip this in the bud right now. A
message needs to be sent to these politicians.
Yep.
If you break the law, you will have your power taken from you.
Yeah.
If you uphold the law, we will help you maintain order and status. That is, if you're a governor and the people of this country vote for a federal law to be enforced, and you decide you're going to go to war with the federal government, jail.
Yep.
If you decide, well, there may be a lot of angry people in my state, but this is how the system is supposed to work, and you work with the federal government, then I believe the federal government should come to your assistance and do what they can to help maintain order and help you you're going to get voted out. That's going to happen because your state's nuts. But the federal government needs to go in and help manage this because the point I'm making, let me clarify. You can't side with the lunatics running around smashing windows and beating people in the streets. You want to side with those people, you go to jail. If you say, I'm not going to let these people do it, the feds should come in and help you maintain order, arrest the rioters, get them locked up. I then think if you clean the streets up, you might actually win re-election. You might actually. Because what I see from the streets, you see that video where someone did a drive-by with a squirt gun in Minnesota? Drove by and sprayed the activists with water. It's like 9 degrees outside. The locals are not happy that a bunch of wackaloons are going nuts. Majority of people probably don't know or care about what's going on. It's always the extremists. Now, what I hear from a lot of people in politics is, well, there will never be a civil war because regular people don't care and they're not paying attention, so who's going to fight? And I'm like, I don't know, the 200,000 extremists on either side, as it always is, or Democrats seize power in the federal government and then levy war.
Yeah.
Like, this issue that we're seeing in Minneapolis is more like Bleeding Kansas. Street level, merciless beatings, violence, law enforcement against extremists and protesters. That's like Bleeding Kansas. People don't think it goes anywhere. They think it's localized violence. You know what really would kick things off? If, first of all, looking at what's going on in Virginia, which we'll get into in a second with them changing the laws, 48 hours and they've basically just wiped out the state. This is insane. And everyone, I think, could have seen this coming. Republicans are probably going to start fleeing. Wealthy and business owners are probably going to start fleeing. We're looking at something not too dissimilar from the Civil War. That is, you've got this localized violence over an ideological issue related to immigration. And we predicted this 1.5 years, 2 years ago. You're going to get a midterm, which will probably be contentious. And then you're going to get a presidential election. And should it be J.D. Vance or any other Republican who vows with a strong fist, we are going to continue and maintain our operations. Democrats fought very hard in 1860 in the election to make sure they could keep their free labor, people who had no choice. We've heard Democrats say time and time again, these people will do the jobs that no one wants to do. We get it, okay? You like your slaves. Well, if Vance comes in and says, we're ending your second-class citizenry operations, this is where it goes national. It's localized now in Minnesota and in other parts of the country too, California, Washington. What happens if 2028 comes around and the Democrats realize you've lost and this is done? Will we actually then see a stronger resistance based on the level of escalation? I would say I think there's a possibility we get somewhere like that. I don't know what it looks like and I don't know what happens in between, but considering we're at the point where the DOJ has issued subpoenas against the governor, the mayor, and the AG. People are beating random people in the streets. You had a woman shot and killed. Again, I'm not talking about morality. I'm just saying it did happen. The escalation is there.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the one time where people go, guys, whoa, holy crap. We can't do this. We can't have states fighting the Fed.
Yeah, I hope that kind of shifts people's perspective. I know that a lot of Republicans are kind of flirting with this idea. Let's withhold our votes from Republicans for failing to come through on a lot of the promises that they made when they were campaigning for election. Withhold your votes. Teach them a lesson that, you know, if you don't follow through with the promises that you make to the people, you're not going to get reelected. But what does the other side of that look like? It's scary if the Democrats come into power. So it kind of feels like a little bit of a lose-lose situation on both sides.
It's a tough calculation because, I mean, you can ask libertarians how that's worked for them, where they, again, withhold their votes expecting like a different... I understand that, I guess, to a degree, extensive executive power. Again, these politicians, really more about holding them accountable to their promises. So it's not a one-to-one. But generally, like, it's more about who's staffing these campaigns, who's sort of in charge of implementing policy more so than like reactiveness to the base. It's just, it sucks. But that's just like the way that liberal democracy functions. And until we escape that, I don't think you're going to see like decisive power wielded by maybe by the executive to a certain degree, but certainly not by Congress.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.